Welcome to Kentucky Horsepower, the official podcast of the Kentucky Automobile Dealers Association. Hey, good day, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Kentucky Horsepower, the official podcast of KADA. I'm Jason Wilson, president of KADA. With me today, of course, is Sarah Bishop, our vice president of KADA, and we have a couple of guests we're excited to have with us today, and that's Jerry Wagner and Pat Morgan. Jerry is the executive director of the Sheriff's Association, and Pat Morgan is the Assistant Executive Director of the Sheriff's Association. And we're here today to talk about sheriff's inspections. Wow, something we've been talking about quite a bit for the last couple of years. In fact, we passed this 2 years ago, and we are now coming to the point, ladies and gentlemen, that this is going to come to fruition. So today's topic, really what we're going to talk about is what are the things we need to know as dealers? What are the things what does this process look like to get going and become a special inspector here? So, Jerry, let's start with you. And from the standpoint of we have this on board. We got a lot of car dealers that want to get going with this thing. What is it they need to know initially in working with their respective sheriffs?
Well, first thing, Jason, thank you for having us here, and thank you for the working relationship we've had for the last 2 years, and certainly thank all the dealerships for being patient. It's been a slow process. But with that being said, the process is really pretty simple. The folks that do qualify, the dealerships that qualify go to the local sheriff's office and ask for an application for a special inspector. And once they get that application, they take it and get it filled out. Once they get it filled out, they turn it back into the sheriff's office. The sheriff will do the background checks, and once the background checks are completed, then if that person is good to go, then it will get into a class, and we'll go from there. There's 2 classes set up. I know we've sent emails out. I'm sure you guys have sent them out also. Yep. And I don't know if you want me to get into that or not, but there's actually one on the 20th of May, and then one on the 28th. And the one on the 20th is at Kentucky Dam Village there at the park. I'm not sure how many spots are left in that right now. Of course, we would encourage the folks down in that area to sign up for that. And then the other one, there's about 250 seats available in it for the 28th. So a lot of spots. We're going to get this thing going.
The training on the 28th is in Frankfort, correct?
That is correct, Sarah. It's at the transportation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the one we're really focusing on and promoting, if you will, because the first one you mentioned, we don't know how many seats are left in that one. That's a smaller one, but May 28th, which is not far from today. Great opportunity to get folks in the class. But it starts with, as Jerry mentioned, reaching out to that sheriff and getting that application done and starting that conversation to get this turned around quickly. So I'd encourage dealers to start doing this as early as once you see this. If you have folks in mind that you want to become special inspectors, that's how that works. Excuse me. Let's talk a little bit about what it means to be a special inspector, right? These are designated folks in the store that have the responsibility of inspecting these vehicles that come in. But there's some, with that responsibility, there are expectations. Let's talk a minute about some of those expectations. Jerry and Pat, what is it that the dealers need to understand when they're considering employees to be special inspectors? What do those special inspectors need to know going into this?
You want to go, Pat?
Sure. First, the process is contacting the sheriff's office in the county which they are in, and go to the sheriff office and speak to either the sheriff or a designee of the sheriff to discuss the special inspector program. We have sent numerous emails to the sheriffs. The bill passed 2 years ago, as you said, Jason, and then there is a background template that has to be, we believe that the sheriffs, if we've sent that template to them, that needs to be completed either using the template that we've provided them, or they can do their own template. But there's a couple things that would preclude you from being a special inspector, and that's misdemeanor convictions of pending charges related to forgery and perjuries under KRS 516 and 523 of the Kentucky Revised Statute. So once you get a person that you want to designate, and the sheriff allows the special inspector program, they complete the background check, and as soon as the background check is completed by the sheriff and they approve the application, the office of sheriff or the designee will submit the paperwork through the inspection system to the Department of Transportation to get them set up into a training class, i.e. May 20th or May 28th. And that when they get set up for the training class, they'll take the training class. Once that's completed and passing of the exam, then they'll receive an inspector number that is embedded within the system. And once they get that number, then they'll start the onboarding process through the Kentucky Department of Transportation and get the process rolling. After they're onboarded, they're basically set up to be able to inspect vehicles. In our email that we sent yesterday, we encouraged the sheriffs to do some type of training before they do before a special inspector starts, to go over things that you just went over, Jason, on, making sure that they do everything right, complete it right, that the sheriff does some type of training or his designee, what is expected, how they should inspect vehicles, and they should not ever divulge their number or let anybody use their sign on. And after they get set up, basically on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, we've also in our email that the finance officer of the sheriff's office needs to do a daily balance. So either they invoice the dealership or the dealership submits payments based on the inspections they've done that month, and that all the books reconcile of the payments or invoice sent by the sheriff.
Yeah, so a lot of moving parts here, obviously. Sarah, chime in on this part if you could, because Pat did a nice job of sort of laying out some of the do's and don'ts on this. But now we need to talk about making sure why it's important that dealers understand why they need to take heed of these do's and don'ts.
It's really important. And one of the things I want to really impress upon our dealers is that you need to pick the right person to be your designated special inspector. So all franchise dealerships are eligible. All right. And independent dealerships that sell an average of 100 cars a month are eligible. Okay. So when you're to have up to 2 per rooftop. So when you're selecting these folks, it's really important that you select people that you trust, because they absolutely cannot do any moonlighting with their special inspector number. They cannot share the special inspector number. If they're on vacation, they can't say, okay, you do these for me, here's my number. That's going to lead to not only potential criminal charges for them, but it could really, if that becomes a problem, then we're going to see folks moving to change this law. And we worked really hard with the Sheriff's Association to get this law passed. It's, I think, going to be good for dealers. I think it's going to be good for sheriffs. We really appreciate all they did to help us get this moving along. And I don't want to see all that hard work jeopardized and all the good it can do by a few bad apples and by dealers not taking the time to make sure that they've got longstanding, trustworthy employees in these roles.
Yeah, it's a really important point. Look, in fact, we mentioned this past 2 years ago, but I remember all of us sitting down talking about this concept probably about 4 years ago when we all had lunch in Frankfurt and started talking through, hey, here's what we're thinking. Here's what our dealers really need. We think it could help the sheriff's offices as well. And so this has been in the works a long time. So now you're getting this opportunity to do something that has been requested. Take heed of all these things and make sure that you're doing things the right way. Jerry, Pat, let's talk about real quick some of the inspection fees here and what this looks like. And this is why the sheriff's offices should be motivated by this as well, because this should those that participate in this, they'll see an increase in the revenues coming into their offices, which I know they desperately need. It's an issue throughout the state. So, guys, what are the fees here on the special inspection? I don't know, Jerry, you want to tackle that, or Pat?
Well, the first thing I want to say is we really didn't get in this for a fee increase.
Yep.
We want the dealers to know, and anybody that's listening to this, our main goal at the beginning of this was to stop fraud, to stop people that's illegally using our inspector numbers and getting vehicles inspected. We just wanted to clean this thing up. With that being said, yes, we do need money, and our offices are running on thin budgets, and we were just getting the $5 for it for many, many years. And Pat, if you want to go ahead and finish off that part of it, but it gets up to $30. So just go ahead and finish that, please.
Yeah, the fraud part of it has been going on for many years. When I retired from the Kenton County Sheriff's Office, I actually had a box, probably 2 or 3 boxes of forged VTRs, documents with stolen inspector numbers, stolen VTRs that were fraudulent, all kinds of different activities. Then we've seen an uptick in more forgeries coming that came in through the office, and we're not saying this was dealerships. We're not. There was some bad actors in all industries of this. I mean, that's why the law was written, that we encompass everybody, that anybody who divulges their number, sells their number or lets somebody use their number. It was basically the forgery in the ongoing activity, and to this date. And we did the June 1st deadline was because in our meeting with, I think Jason and Sarah, you were in there, of the number of forgeries that were occurring on the VTRs at this time, which we anticipated 2 years ago. But the fees, to get back to the fees, the $30, the $30 could be an incentive to the Office of Sheriff to assign special inspectors if they choose to do so. We know the system through the reporting center system through Jennifer Gatewood that the actual system is working well. I think we've collected almost $1 million in inspections since sometime late last year with the offices that are participating in the electronic vehicle inspection system. And I think once the special inspector gets going and you get the franchise dealers and the other ones who are eligible who sell over 100 cars a month, then you will see that revenues in the special inspector and for the Office of Sheriff will go up.
Yeah, and all great points. And again, I just want to remind folks that the fee that was in place prior to all this, that $5 fee that Jerry mentioned, I think that's been in place since, I don't know, Reagan was president, or maybe even farther back than that. It's been in place a while, so it was due for some to be updated, et cetera, as just like the rest of our industry and things that we deal with. Sarah, let's talk about some deadlines that go along with this and some things dealers need to be aware of from that standpoint.
Absolutely. So while it's a little bit separate from the dealership special inspector line, it's something that we want to make sure dealerships are aware of, and that is that the paper inspection forms are not going to be accepted after June 1st. All right, so KYTC is not going to accept them. Virtually all sheriff's offices, and Pat or Jerry can give me the number, maybe it is 120 counties, have been already transferred over to the electronic process. So the vast majority of sheriffs are doing their own inspections electronically now. For those that are not, or that have been doing paper, that's going to not be accepted starting June 1st. So if you've got those paper forms on your desk, let's get those submitted pretty quickly, because if you don't, you're going to either have to ask your sheriff nicely to transfer the existing inspection into electronic format, or you're going to have it re-inspected. That'll probably depend on the discretion of the sheriff. So just make sure you're aware of this deadline and make sure we're getting that stuff off your desk.
Yep, and we also understand. Look, communication sometimes is the big challenge in launching any new endeavor. And when you're talking about 120 counties, clerks and sheriffs and dealers that are operating throughout the Commonwealth in those counties, sometimes you're going to get different communications or have some mix-ups or some misunderstandings. In the event those things occur, let us know. We're working closely with the Sheriff's Association to ensure that just like with us, we want to make sure our dealers understand the program, and we're owning that as best we can. Jerry and Pat to the Sheriff's Association is doing likewise with their members on the sheriff's side. So, look, there's always going to be a couple hiccups early on. We know that, but the end game is to get through this, starting with these classes in May, along with this podcast. That the emails that you're going to receive with this, there'll be some details on there as well, class schedules, etc., things of that nature. So you have that handy and can respond and act accordingly, guys. As we wind down on this, Jerry, Pat, any sort of parting words that you want to say for this? This is our sort of first podcast communication format on this, but there'll be others as we get further into this. But for today's purposes, Jerry, anything else you want to add?
I would like to say that, it's going to, like you said, there could be some hiccups in it here and there probably will be. Just please take the time to talk to your sheriff personally if there is an issue, and I feel sure that they can work that out. If not, certainly your folks reach out to you. I'm going to ask our folks to do the same thing to us, and I promise you that we will intervene and try to work out whatever the issues may be, because nobody wants us to work any more than we do.
That's right. And I want to take just a moment as we close to thank both Jerry and Pat, which has been hugely instrumental in representing the sheriffs and them, the Sheriff's Association, in moving this forward. This is not an easy thing. It took a lot of work to get to where we are, and now it is exciting that we are on the precipice of actually putting this forward in place, and it should make everyone's lives easier, which was the idea to begin with. So, with that, Sarah, Pat, anything you want to add, or we can wrap?
Now, I think Jason, Jerry said it well, that, we're going to have hiccups. You said it well, we're going to have hiccups. We just got to work our way through it. You got 120 sheriffs that operate independently. You got 120 clerks who operate independently, and then we have a lot of dealers. I think in our initial meetings that we met 4 years ago and got to this point, several ways, all the way to this point, that, we, the change. People don't like change, but, for you all and for the fraudulent use in the criminal activity, us stopping part of that and then helping you all as a business friendly kind of deal. COVID showed us that, cars have left the area, dealerships are going to have to bring them back, or they had to be inspected out of state. That we've encountered a lot of problems, when you guys, in our discussions were, cars were gone, and then they couldn't be inspected because of shortage of vehicles. So I think the legislators, with you all and us coming to sit together at the table, really brought this program to the forefront, where it was sitting on the back burners for a long time, and it helped us with the forgery and fraud. So hopefully this is a win-win for everybody, and everybody can work this and any differences out to get this to work for our associations and for our constituents of the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Yep, absolutely. Sarah, last word.
Oh, good. I love having the last word. No, we just let us know if you're having difficulties. We appreciate that Jerry and Pat still take our calls, because that's who we reach out to, and they have been great partners in this process.
Great. Well, with that, I thank you for your time today, gentlemen. Sarah, thank you for joining as well. And as we explain this process, we're looking forward to putting this into practice. Reach out with questions, concerns, etc. But thank you for joining this episode of Kentucky Horsepower, and we'll look forward to chatting with you further down the road.